moderator to join us online. But prior to that, I would want us to get to introduce ourselves. I'm Kofi Akwabi, needless to say, travel writer. I'm flanked on the left, immediate left, by Kofi Idoche. Say something about yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Kofi Idoche, travel content creator, travel writer, and then I happen to work in the social media space as well. Yeah, nice to meet everyone here.
Thank you. Pelu, we all know he's been around for this panel a couple of times. But Pelu, welcome to Ghana again.
Thank you.
You just arrived from the airport.
2 hours ago.
Okay, how does it feel to be back in Ghana?
Good, I tell you. I mean, it's always nice to land in a crowd.
Okay.
And see beautiful sights and see beautiful people.
Okay, so having said that, my first question to you, have you ever considered a travel writing in Ghana?
You'll be surprised, but the answer is actually yes. When I came to Pa Gya the very first time, I think that was 2018, I was talking to Dr. Jose Poku, who was supposed to have been our moderator right here, but he's not here. So we were having lunch, and we went to explore, so we were having lunch, and we were discussing the possibilities of myself traveling to different parts of Ghana and writing about my experiences. You know, definitely discuss at length. I look very much forward to that experience. Unfortunately, in both 2018 and 2019, I didn't stay long enough to even be able to do that after Pa Gya. But I think I'm going to be able to do that now because on this trip, I've given myself some extra days to stay back in Accra to be able to look around and do some of the travel writing about Ghana that I've always wanted to do. So I look forward to it very much.
That's very interesting to know. So I want to start from okay, join this panel for the first time. What does travel writing mean to you?
So for me, travel writing is about me telling the story from an African perspective, because I feel people who come all the way to Ghana kind of give their own view of what it is, and then I feel I have a responsibility to tell the story because I live here, I grew up here, I spent all my life here in Ghana, so I know the stories, I know the culture, I know the way we do our stuff, so it is my responsibility to tell the story, and it's why I choose to travel right. Yeah.
So I'll just jump in on. I mean, I just had this interaction.
You're welcome.
I like what Kofi has said. Well, Africa needs a lot more travel writing to be done about it. You know, we know the West has done quite a lot of travel. I mean, a lot of writing about Africa. Of course, always from the perspective of the West. I think the time has come for Africans to start writing more about the continent. You know, by way of travel writing, you know, and I think I know what he's trying to say. For example, so many we don't know so much about we don't know so much about West Africa. Talk less of Africa itself. You know, if nobody's writing about West Africa, about Africa in the way and manner it ought to be written about, then we are leaving room for news headlines to dominate our consciousness, which is what's already happening. It has been like that for decades, whereby the perception people get of a particular country, of a particular society, comes from the news that they consume. You know, if there is no travel writing, no cultural reporting to balance that aspect of journalism, then society suffers. It is what I try to do for Nigeria, always trying to showcase that other side that many people don't know. If you Google Nigeria now, I mean, for the past 10, 20 years, the information that you get about Nigeria is not always so very nice. But people who venture, who take the bold step to ignore the news, get the visa, fly to Nigeria, find a totally different country. Alright, and when they come and experience the country, they find that it is not different from what they from what they thought Nigeria was and knew. The same applies to many countries, especially on the continent. So we need people like Kofi like yourself, both of you are Kofis, and Pelua Ofeso, and so many other people on the continent writing about this other side of Africa that not many people know about. For example, Like I said, I've not been to anywhere in Ghana, apart from coming to Pa Gya and moving around the area. But I like to explore. I like to understand Ghana more, the culture, the people, of course I've experienced food here. So if I do that, and I publish that story in Nigeria, you can bet that people are going to read and they get my perspective of Ghana. Not from the news, but from the travel like that. If you were to come to Nigeria in the same manner, and you take a trip around, you write your experience about Nigeria, it goes beyond the Jollof wars and the national team wars. It becomes more about the experiential, of Nigeria, which is what I think we all should do for our respective countries. So, well done, Kofi. You are on the journey. I wish you all the best.
Okay, so the issues both of you have mentioned raises ideology, writing so that you project a certain perspective, or in order to challenge the Western gaze, as it were. So this is to both of you, starting with Doche. When you write, you mentioned that many Ghanaians know about Ghana to a certain extent, but the outsiders have no idea. Okay, so when you write, is ideology up front? Are you thinking of ideology as you write?
Yeah, so I figure that, we as writers, you have a certain call it like an angle. Anytime you are pitching to an editor or like a writer, you have an angle. So when you kind of think about what we lack here at writers or like creators, then we kind of project that forward. For me personally, I look to the hidden gems, the hidden things that people don't really know about Ghana. I know the annual period on Ghana around December time is always high, and it's always about merrymaking, it's always about partying. I'm not about that. I'm more about the culture, the unique things that make us Ghanaians. So I'll find myself in the village somewhere, writing about how to make batik fabric, how to weave kente, those unique stuff. And that is what the world is yearning to listen to, because we don't see that all the time on the internet. So to push the agenda forward is one of the things I really look up to. Yeah.
Thank you. Pelu, where is ideology when you are out there writing?
I mean, it's always about, first and foremost, you always think, why am I traveling to this destination? What am I writing about? I already established why I do what I do for Nigeria. And oftentimes, well, not often, people have actually told me that, you know what, you can't totally ignore the negatives of Nigeria or for any country, of any country for that matter. But the thing is, there's so many people already writing about news about the country. I think what we need more of are people writing about the top side of every country. The West has been able to perfect the art of the society, every aspect of society, to the point where they export that to the rest of the world. And we consume that, we enjoy that, we appreciate what it is. It is because of what they do that many Africans really want to go abroad. Just imagine that we approach the same ideology to also exploring and writing about our own continent. Do you know how much force that would be? So it's about identifying that there's something that needs to be done. There is a mission that we need to accomplish, and just going after that mission, and then hoping that from what you do, you'll be able to get more people to follow in your footsteps and do the same thing. I must mention to you that already that is happening, especially on social media. I don't know the social media situation in Ghana, but social media in Nigeria is already blowing up with travel content, travel-specific content by a younger generation of Nigerians. So when I look at what they do on social media, I'm very impressed. But even so, we still need so many more of them doing the same thing, trying to show the rest of the world that, guys, you know this side of Nigeria, we are showing you the other side that you probably don't know. So I think they are also working from the same ideology as myself. Because, come to think about it, there's just so much that goes unreported, or that is underreported about Africa. And it's our responsibility as travel writers, as culture writers, culture reporters, to now begin to bring this to the fore. Because, again, the world is hungry for Africa, for content from Africa. Who is producing this content, or that content? It has to come from us. It's already happening, but we need to do more of it.
So you mentioned the phrase, the force of travel writing. I want you to stay on that for a moment more. For you, what's the power in travel writing, especially from the Ghanaian, Nigerian, African perspective? What's the power in travel writing?
Well, there's a lot of power in it. But it just so happens that unfortunately, I hate to talk about government, I hate to talk about, I hate to blame government all the time. Because if you continue to blame government on what they do not do or what they really don't seem to do, we'll never get anywhere. So, the power of travel writing is in the ability it has to change perceptions. You get it? I'm trying to think of an example. So there's this thing in Rwanda. When you hear about Rwanda, you mostly hear about the Tutsi and Hutu crisis that became, that actually almost left the country. But over the years, Rwanda has rebranded. There's a different perception of Rwanda now because the country has actually been able to work on its image. Recently, they had a gorilla naming ceremony, which has become a critical part of their tourism, calendar. They're going to do gorilla trapping in East Africa. We pay so much money for that. Now, when I hear Rwanda, I don't remember, the first thing that comes to my mind is Tutsi and Hutu. It is the travel information that I've seen about the gorilla naming ceremony, the gorilla trapping, that comes to my mind. That is the power of travel. It's the power of travel information. I could go on and mention to you different countries that have done the same thing. For example, Namibia. Ethiopia. When I think about Ethiopia, unfortunately that place is it's an ongoing crisis now, there's a war going on. But believe me, the very first thing I ever learned about Ethiopia is their coffee ceremony. It's a major part of their everyday life. So I don't see Ethiopia and see war or famine. I see coffee tasting ceremony. And that is what I want to go and do when I eventually get to Ethiopia. I think these are kind of things. And these were shared with me by colleague writers. If they didn't share these kind of things with me, I probably never have known, except I go to search for it by myself. But because we're having conversations, we're discussing travel writing and how societies can be represented, those things came up. And they showed me pictures, like you take pictures now. So writing complemented by beautiful photography can do a lot for a country's reputation. That is what we have to focus on.
Thank you very much. Before I bring in Doche to tell us how he ventured into the genre, I would want to add a bit to what he has said from the position of the history. I started writing travel before I started researching it, and one of the things I learned quickly was that when we talk colonialism, it was actually preceded by travel writing. Okay, so when you remember the David Livingstones and all the explorations, the expeditions, they were not just done, they were done actually with a systematic documentation alongside. Okay, so that documentation was what explained the societies, the African continent, the cultures, although from their perspective. Okay, so then, so I must also add that the wars, especially the Ashanti wars, okay, some of these soldiers were also diarizing. Some were actually also writers. Plus, the expedition were accompanied sometimes by journalists. Okay, so all these products of what they surveyed became travel pieces to which the governments and the kingdoms that sent them studied to get a good sense of place and people as far as Africa was concerned. Okay, and then you can also add anthropology before anthropology came in. So travel is actually a tool which can be used anyhow, like all tools. question then is for us and our leadership, what emphasis are we placing on it? Because when you look at our journalism training institutions and our sociology institutions, it doesn't seem to ever come up as a genre. On notes, I go to Kid on the Block. How did you find travel writing?
So for me, I happen to be very social media savvy, and I create travel content. I mean, with my mobile phone. Anytime I go to a new destination, I take clips, I take photos, I meet the owners of the. Let's say, for example, I go to a quick gorge, whoever is a tour guide, I get to meet them, I interview them, and get to know how it's done, like everything about the space, and then I get to share on social media. So a lot of this information has gone outside, and because of that, people kind of follow me for this information. A majority of my followers come from the US, from the Nigeria, from the UK, and then other countries. So I told myself, I'm doing well on social. Why not try also to push the travel writing side? Because I see a lot of publications from like the travel and leisure, from travel noir, culture trip and the others. So I told myself,
all these things are not Ghanaian local, right?
Exactly. Because we get a lot of these travelers coming to Ghana around this time towards December. So people want to see something fresh from the continent. I have the information, I know the stories, I know how the culture works here. Why don't I put that information together and then package it outside? So that's how come I fell into travel writing. So my first pitch was to Photos Travel. I don't know if you know, we have a skate park in Ghana. Ghana has what? Skate park, yeah, Freedom Skate Park. It's Ghana's first skate park, and it's pushing sustainable tourism, empowering the youth, to build a sense of community and to overcome their social pressures. So that was the first story, and it was exciting. The editor found it really exciting because when you think about skateboarding, your mind will come to Ghana, your mind will come to West Africa. But Ghana being able to have something of that sort. I mean, people who are thinking of coming to Ghana for the first time in December will bring along their skateboards because they're coming to skate for the first time. It's not about going to the parties or traveling to the Cape Coast Castle. There's a skate park in Accra. You can go over there to skate and then to push all that stress away. And it's been good. So from there, I did something for Black Explorer magazine, and then from there, I think I sent a pitch to Global Citizen. And then through that, I started creating travel content for them. And so recently, I did 2 videos for them. One was about surfing in Ghana, and then reasons why facts people should know about Ghana. And the kind of information I put out there got people really excited. And I'm happy to see those videos were the most performing videos on TikTok and Instagram for like the past 3 months. And then my supervisors told me that's actually awesome. So it actually tells me that we have a lot to do. We have a lot of information to put out there. Okay, we can't just. We need to put in the work, put in the right information, put it out there because you don't know who might be listening, who might be watching. One other thing is, people told me they come to Ghana because of what I put out there. So it's really interesting. It's telling me, okay, then I'm doing something. I need to keep on pushing. Even if it's one person telling me they see what I do and it's encouraging them, then it's fine. How much more? Maybe 5 people or 10 people. So that's how come I got into travel writing.
Okay, so I have a question for you. You don't mind? For you.
Oh, okay. Well, wait. Let me ask you another question before.
Okay.
So, how do you sponsor yourself? You mentioned your supervisors. If you can explain that as well.
So, for the sponsorship bit, that's a very good question. For me, I travel because I want to unplug or I want to relax or want to visit a new destination. So that means I need to find a way to sponsor myself. So I'm a freelancer, so I kind of manage separate brands, go for local. So the little money I don't spend all because I know I'm a youth. I'm supposed to like chilling, but then I put some money aside. Yeah. So if it's 100 CDs, 100 CDs aside. If it's 50 CDs, and then they accumulate, and then when I decide to plan to travel, I use that money to go. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, maybe I can go. Right? Yeah. Okay, you remember our last travel writing panel Pa Gya because 2019, unfortunately, everything because of COVID. We discussed about how we could better represent maybe the continent more in travel writing. And I know we have a couple of suggestions. So my question will be, so for example, last month was World Tourism Day, September 27th. In Nigeria, a project was launched that I was a part of. It's called Destination West Africa. And the idea is to be able to travel around the sub-region, encouraging West Africans to travel around West Africa. Like I said earlier, we really don't know so much about this whole part of West Africa. And we say we are ECOWAS member countries. How best do you think we can raise the awareness of West Africans? Let's just even focus on the sub-region. Raise the awareness of West Africans to appreciate the other West African countries. You have Ghana, appreciate all the other countries, Sierra Leoneans. How do we ensure that West Africans know more about West Africa to the point where they can then always go to those places? Transportation is always an issue. It's not easy, to cross borders. You know what happens when you try to travel across borders. Can travel writing help us in this regard?
Thanks. Your question is a difficult one. So let me break it down to the national level. And I'll start with another question. You've been doing writing for some time now, right? How many other travel writers have you met or seen in Ghana? Okay. So and how many Nigerians are as active as you in the space?
They're increasing now.
They are increasing now, which is a good sign. And you've been at this for over about a decade.
The thing is, they use social media more.
Yes.
They are not really like core travel writers, but they create their content on social media.
On social media.
Also,
yes. And which is smart and convenient to them.
Exactly.
Okay.
That generation.
Yeah. So within the national space itself, there is very little evidence of cooperation. Okay. I believe we have a group, for instance, that's supposed to promote travel writing. But what happened was that they ended up consumed in celebrity entertainment writing. That seems to them to be more comfortable, interesting. They don't want to do the hard lifting. Because in travel writing, there's before the writing, there is the travel. Okay, which is also, let's face it, resource intensive. Okay, so those are the hardcore realities on the ground. So it's easier for people to write about entertainment and sometimes just tourism than travel. Okay, than travel. And he just mentioned the issue of sponsorship. Now let me lift it higher to answer directly what you have said. What you have raised for me is an opportunity. Okay, an opportunity for us to start reaching across the borders. Because yes, we need to know about ourselves. Yes, we need to know about the difficulties within and across our countries. Yes, we have to confront these challenges, and we can be stronger if we are dealing with colleagues that are experiencing the same space in the neighboring countries. Maybe you can start. I know you are a doer. I have no idea of anyone in Nigeria who does travel apart from you. I'm serious. There was someone I met in Burkina Faso a couple of years ago, and then who else? So it's a field that is so niche, okay, that we need to begin to take advantage of it and decide that we have to democratize the space, decolonize it. Because like it or not, the Western gaze is busy writing us. They are writing Africa, they are writing Ghana, they are writing West Africa every day. So you either take advantage come to the space and counter or provide your own version, or you'll be overwhelmed by content that is generated outside of you. Yeah. So I don't know whether I've answered your
I
question.
think you have, yeah, essentially. You've just given us food for thought, and I think it's something that we need to act on. But I mean, to also be fair to the Western media, there's now a trend of Western media headhunting African talent in the media space. So actually now begin to report news about the continent. 20 years ago, you would never find an African journalist, heading an African bureau, of the Western media. That is beginning to change, and we're beginning to see more Africans heading, West African offices of media and international media organizations. So I think it's a shift in the right direction. So it is happening in the news, in the news circuit. It now needs to happen in the travel writing and travel publishing circuit.
Shakira said it in a song about 10 years ago. He said it's time for Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's time for Africa.
I think the change is already happening.
Yeah. So we have to be ready. But we'll go to questions. But I want to find out from Doche what is his own experience of Ghanaians' attitude to leisure travel. What is the attitude that you have?
I think it's a very good question. I think over the years, for Ghanaians, we don't like to explore. Primarily because we are not really like exposed as compared to like the whites. We don't like to explore. We kind of feel taking a trip to Adobe Bridge like would cost an arm and leg. So I would go. Even walking, taking a stroll around the streets. You're not going to see Ghanaians do that, but you get to see a few, especially the youth around the Gen Z millennial side. You kind of see increasing taste for exploring, for leisure, for relaxation, and I think it's attributed to social media because I feel people get to see things online, they're exposed to these things on social media, and they see that it's actually not that hard. That if you just try, you can actually do that too. So you don't need much to be able to travel. That is what most Ghanaians don't know. But I'm happy that I'm getting to see a few people increasing their taste for travel, for relaxation. They don't need to go far. That's what I keep telling them. Start with what you have. If you start with what you have, you can actually start to do something. Try to relax. Because I feel Accra is becoming so busy, Accra is becoming so clogged. And if you just go to Ibri right now, you see that the air over there is actually so fresh as compared to Accra. So people need to be exposed more. Ghanaians need to be exposed more to travel. And I'm getting to see some imprints. People are beginning to travel, and it's a good time. Yeah.
I actually think the solution to this whole thing is Ghanaians traveling to maybe Nigeria or Togo or whatever, and then vice versa. Because I sense some sort of desire for Nigerians to want to come to Ghana a lot. When I was coming from the airport, the guy who kindly came to pick me said he's never been to Nigeria and he really looks forward to visiting the country. And there I was saying, I wish if I could just make it. So this, international travel between our countries is going to actually help tourism on the continent very well. So if, as individuals, we desire to travel around our neighbors, I think the best we can do is to try to encourage it so that more trans-border travels happen, and then we can build from there.
Trans-border travels within West Africa.
Yeah.
We all know the difficulties and the challenges. But hey, it's still our region, right? And we have to. This is the point where we turn to our audience. If there is any contribution, any question, any intervention, just show by hand. We'll be happy to give you the mic. Good. Okay, so we're still waiting, but okay.
Oh, okay.
Nana? Yeah. Go ahead.
so good. I'm sorry I came in midway, but what I heard was so good. I guess I have two questions. One for Doche. In working for international as well as local vendors, what are the differences in the types of content that they prefer? And then I want to ask you, because Ghana has been sort of the headquarters of the year of return, beyond the return, how do you feel being in what you're seeing broadcast abroad about your country? And I want to add, because I chose not to come to Ghana during that time because I was just like, I don't want to deal. But I heard so many people telling me, oh my goodness, what's going on in your country? What's going on in Ghana? Ghana's the spot. Ghana, Ghana, Ghana. So I wonder how you feel about it being.
Thank you for that question. That's a good one. So I think two to one. For the international publications, they look out for unique stories. They are tired of the 10 things to find in Ghana. They are tired of the 10 hotels to visit. They are looking for like a unique story, like developing stories. For example, the Freedom Skate Park establishment in Ghana is something they're really excited because it's pushing responsible travel, it's pushing sustainable travel, and it's something that is new and it's occurring in the country. So if you're able to kind of push such stories, they prefer that as compared to the listicle kind of stories like the 10 hotels and other stuff to do. Now back to the PR about Ghana bit, I feel there's a good side to it. Then I can also feel that the media has pushed a lot of the partying bits outside. So it's more of like, I'm coming to Ghana because I want to party in December. However, there's actually a good side to it. You know, in December there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of human movement all around. But then, if you can, I always tell people to come ahead of the season. You can come maybe from now towards December. There's actually a lot you can actually do because you'll be competing with other people. To visit, let's say, Cape Coast Castle or Luna Castle. Aside that, there are other things you can actually try. You can learn how to make batik. Go to how do you call it? Bone ring, Kumase, learn how to make kente, go to the north, learn about the shea butter making, processing and all that. And even learn how to even make chocolate in Ghana. There are so many experiences that we are not pushing out there, and that is what I stand for. Pushing out this hidden information, pushing out this hidden experiences that people need to try, instead of the annual merrymaking that we find people come to Ghana to do in December. Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
I can also just right on the back of your question and its response to say, I recently wrote a series of mini guides for Lonely Planet. Lonely Planet is one of the biggest travel book publishers in the world, and the focus was Lagos. Everybody who knows about Nigeria will know about Lagos. If you get to Nigeria, you get into Lagos first. So I was commissioned to write a series of guides for the city. So this is a city that has its own negative perception abroad. There's traffic, that's what you hear. There's too much traffic, too many people, there's all sorts of things. So in tackling that kind of brief, I needed to do an extra amount of legwork. That's where I was born, that's my city. If anybody is going to be able to write, maybe objectively about Lagos, sharing what I consider the best travel information for potential visitors. I guess that person was me. And it took me maybe about 16 weeks traveling around all of Lagos region, finding that unique information that I think, of course, I had a guideline. They were looking for, so again, I was writing for backpackers. I wasn't writing for business travelers, but the information that I was able to put together would be used by anybody and everybody. So I went beyond all the usual things, traffic and stuff and whatever. And I said, if you really want to enjoy Lagos, this and this and this and this, I want you to be looking out for. This is the way the city runs. For example, many people know Lagos as a contemporary mega city, so to speak. But at the heart of Lagos is culture and reality and heritage. But not many outsiders care for that part of Lagos. So it was my responsibility to share all of those different slices of the city for people and never meet, but who I wanted to actually say, someone has done all the hard work for us, let's just come and explore. And it was really good doing that for an international audience. So it's just like Sylvia was saying, yeah, people really want to come to Africa, but where is the information? Who is writing the information? Is it coming from the outside or from within? I think that kind of information is best served from within, like someone, a son of the soil, who just knows about his own society. I hope I've done some.
All right. I want to. My question goes to. Is it tickling the Ghanaian or tickling the nation? I want to find out from you what motivated you to start writing travel rights. In the sense that there are so many things around in Ghana where you can talk about. When you decided that you want to talk about travel, that's for you. And then, what reaction do you get when people read your things and you meet them face to face and they want to talk to you? What sense do you get from what they have read? Are they happy with what you write? I read something, I think they went to one of the falls, the Ruby Falls, and they wrote something on it. What is the people's perspective about what you have written? That's the question.
Very, very good question. So first of all, it is tickling the Ghanaian.
Tickling the Ghanaian, yes. Okay.
Tickling the Ghanaian.
Yes, I read that.
So I went into travel writing, let's say, for myself. Okay, I grew into this idea of there's a market to serve, people should know, and stuff like that. It was an accident. I was thrown far away into. So this is history. Okay, national service. I chose Eastern Region. And when the posting came, they added Upper to the Eastern Region. So I ended up in Upper East. And it was my first time going beyond Kumasi. But strangely, I connected to the savannah in a way that I still can't explain. I just admired the baobab tree, the sheer space, the donkey, the traditional mud hut, the pito, it was like, wow. And I could never stop talking about it. Okay, to friends when I call Accra and all those things. So there was an encounter with a South African couple, and I was telling them about the place. They were traveling through Ghana from Burkina Faso. So we had sat down to drink, and I was telling them about the places there. So one of them said, young man, do you know that all these things you are telling us, you could actually put it into writing? And I'm like, oh. They said, yes, it's called travel writing. Okay, so they left, I paid for the drink. And I've been thinking about, so my very first travel article, and this place is Pa Gya in the Upper East region. So my very first travel piece was titled Pa Gya. Okay, fortunately, it was published in the newspapers, and that gave me the wings to do more. With respect to how the public has received me, I think it's been good, because one of the things that is understated, and I wasn't thinking of it then, but I think of it now, is that I've written more about other places in Ghana than about my own place. I've written about other people in Ghana than about my own people. Okay, strangely, I have never had the issue of a backlash or someone saying, no, you didn't represent us well. Because travel writing is representation, okay? For the North alone, I can't remember the number of articles I've written. Books, 2 solid books, just on the North. And I don't come from the North, okay? So if there was something problematic, by now it would have been out there that I've said something derogatory or bad about them. I just report as I feel like. So for me, it started as something that I enjoyed, and initially when I write and other people are reading, I'm surprised that they are enjoying it too, because I thought I was serving myself. So then it grew. Yeah, Nana?
I have one more question. What you said made me think about the fact that when you are a visitor somewhere, you often notice things that we kind of get inured to when we're in it. So, what are the things that you have learned from reading other people's take on Lagos, on Ghana?
Well, travel writing is a very subjective thing. Okay, so the travel writer always wears two hats. Okay, the hat of the tourists experiencing it, and then the hat of a journalist recording it as you see it. So it's a balance. For you to serve the readership well, you must wear these two hats very well, because if you just write what you see, they may not be able to feel the experiential, okay? But if you carry them along with you, you let them feel how that water tastes, you let them feel how the sound of the space is, then it's easier for them to know that yes, this person has really written about this place for us to our understanding. So it's usually when I read other people's perception, you know that this person, based on how they write it, you know that this person is focused more on one or the other. Okay, maybe he's just journaling, or maybe he's had an experience and he wants to share. So that becomes very highly subjective. I think it's a question that an experienced travel writer like Pelu should also answer.
So yeah, thanks for that. I always see the best travel writing sometimes comes from the position of being a stranger.
Louder.
Yeah, when you're a stranger in a particular locality, you'll be able to pick, like you said, things that the people from that place don't really pay attention to. Like coffee, I've also written a lot about northern Nigeria. I'm from the southern part of the country, but every time I travel to the northern part of the country, I get this, I get excited because it's a completely different world from the south where I'm from. Of course, I've written about everywhere in the country. I'm just saying that my antennas always are at their peak when I'm in the northern part of the country, because I see a world completely different from my own. And I'm very much keen to dig deep and find out what is it about these people, what can I say about them for everybody else. Because unfortunately for us in Nigeria, many people, when they hear northern Nigeria, a couple of things come to mind. Yeah, you are wishful, I wasn't wishful. In Nigeria, we call it BH. It's just starting to BH. You get BH here, Sandiku, and get all of that. But I think it's unfortunate. Boko Haram. It's a real fight. You know? So I feel a bit uncomfortable when an entire part of the country is seen through a particular window. I think it's very unfair. And we've had in recent times a couple of international visitors come to the northern part of the country, and you can see them having the fun of their lives. The same place we demonize as bandit territory, Boko Haram territory, all of that. These same people are coming, not minding that this place is out there. They're just exploring this society for what it's got to offer with the tourists. So I think it's almost the way we all need to go. There will always be news about every society. But in some parts of the world, we allow the news to overrun the other realities of those countries. And it's something we need to always look beyond. So yes, strangers will always be able to write beautifully about a place. I do that a lot, but I can also write very well about a place that I'm familiar with. So I can always switch.
Okay, so I take up my role as a moderator cum panelist. So while we wait, we're still looking in the audience. If there's a question contribution, we'll take it. Oh, there is one. Good. Thanks for saving me.
Good afternoon. Really enjoying the discussion. You talked earlier about those historical accounts where white people came to Africa and wrote about their experiences. What about Africans going to the West, whatever you want to call it, Europe, the United States, Canada and other places, and writing about their experiences there?
That's a good question. So travel writing is also an expression of power. Okay? So for one to decide that I think I can and I'm able to mobilize resource and move from A to B and then write about B, that is a position of power to begin with. So we all know the history. The Africans do not have the technology to have done what the Europeans did. That's the story of our life. Okay, they had the capability and they braved the storm and they came. They were interested in finding out how are these people like. That's the reality. Okay, so now, yes, I'll get to now. I'll finish with the history. So now, what's the profile of an African in Europe? What's the profile of an African in America? He's someone who's hustled and is out there to work or to go to school. Okay, so primarily he has his work or his hustle cut for him. If you are lucky and that person has the dispensation and the interest and the wherewithal, because you need money, then that person can do travel for as a hobby. Okay, as a hobby. But that's just one part. The other part is, where's the market? In which African space, African media is interested in, Ghanaians in America. Can you tell us what's going on in America in terms of leisure? You understand? Because even if our news media, they have bureaus in the West, they would only be able to cater for politics, economics. You understand? So it's also an issue beyond power. It's also an issue of priority and wherewithal.
I actually find that person very interesting because it's actually something that I actually set out to do in 2016. That particular year, I went for a travel writing conference or a workshop in the UK. It was my first time, 2016. And after the conference ended, I switched to travel writing mode. And my intention was to travel around the UK within the time that I had, about 10 days, to do the kind of travel writing that I did in Nigeria. I mean, and I did that actually a lot, and I was putting those articles on my Medium account. If I can give you my name, you'll find the articles. I began to serialize it. So I said, and that was I came from the mind of what you said. They came to the country, to the continent, to come and interpret our society, to write about our people. Now we should be doing the same thing. They should have no grudge about Africans now coming to interpret their society. So I did that in 2016. I was back again in 2019 before COVID, and I continued. On my next trip, I'm going to take up from where I stopped. So this is actually very valid. We need to begin to also write about Western societies the same way they feel comfortable and confident to write about our own society. We should do that more. Thank you very much for your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Mine is just like giving an experience based on her question. Last year, I was here for the first time in a long time to attend Pa Gya. And then I returned, and then last week I have a published book titled The African Voice, which was inspired by my coming here. I have a book titled Once a Soldier, and a bit of it has to do with my living in England for a while. And then, of course, contrary to what most people already know, I got boggled in England. I've never been boggled in Nigeria before, but I've lived in Nigeria for so many decades. And then I got robbed by some 3 gentlemen, again in England, on my way. They felt I was a vulnerable black man. It was around 11 p.m., but it was bright, so it was like daytime to me coming from Nigeria. But it was late night for them. And they came to attempt to steal my phone. Of course, in the process, a lot of things happened and all of that. So it is at your leisure, so to speak, even if you're not looking at commerce, to document what your experiences are. It is your right to do so. And so everyone should feel free to do so. If you want to commercialize it, that becomes another story. But I think that it is my right to write about where I go to. So for all of you I'm seeing now, they're going to be my next book.
That would be an honor. Thank you so very much.
So we have a few minutes more. I would like to give, so I've taken up my moderator role. I'm not a panelist anymore. I'll give it first to Kofi Doche to give us briefly his final words, and then Pelu as well.
Thank you very much. So I feel for emerging writers, emerging content creators, or wherever you find yourself in the industry, I feel it's high time we started to put out information. I saw a tweet yesterday that said we don't have a lot of Africans putting out publications or writing or putting things out on the internet. So I think it's time that we put things out. Start with what you have. You don't need to have the most sophisticated equipment or the experience. Start with what you have. Put the information out there because you don't know who's watching, and then you find yourself. Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming for our session. This is the 3rd travel writing session at Pa Gya. And I haven't been to any travel writing, any literary festival, not even in Nigeria, where travel writing is discussed. So I always look forward to coming to Pa Gya to discuss travel writing. And if you don't mind, I think this is about a good time to actually talk about my book. This was published on October 1st, Nigeria's independence anniversary. And it's me trying to promote the beauty of Nigeria as a country, but more of the northern part of the country. So you'll find 60% of the content of this book about the northern part. So if all you know about northern Nigeria is BH, banditry, and kidnapping, I think you need to have another perspective of that part of the country. And all of that is here, travel writing style, not news. Thank you very much again for attending our panel.
Thank you, Pelu. Thank you for coming. I have only 2 words for you. 1, travel. 2, write.